I just wanna move your heart. All right, please turn your Bibles to 2 Samuel chapter 2. Isn't it? Yeah, that's what it says. Chapter 2. I go. Oh. All of the internet just heard my old man noises. I go. Ugh. Okay. All right. 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 1 through 9. Okay. Last week, did Saul pass away last week? My perception of time is that was 2 weeks ago. Then what happened last week? Oh, last week. So yeah, 2 weeks ago Saul passed away, and then last week we saw how David responded to that event. Now a lot of us, I think many of us would think, oh, finally it's done. Like this giant obstacle in David's way is gone, and now things will just like turn a new leaf. And then we were sort of barely walking, but now because of this giant event, important event that happened, we're gonna start rolling. Like we've been climbing uphill so long, and we finally, this might feel like, oh, it's the peak. Once we get to the other side, we can start really like moving. Have y'all ever done a hike? Jenna apparently climbed multiple mountains this past week or weekend or whatever. Bona too. Bona, did you climb a lot of mountains? I don't see either of them right now. But anyway, they went to like Las Vegas and Utah and Arizona and climbed a lot of stuff. And apparently Jenna's dad is afraid of heights. So apparently he cried. While I imagine Jenna's mom was like, "Ah, baliga, baliga, go, go, go." Right? What a fun time for him. But I assume going up, right, for all of us who's ever done any sort of hike that goes uphill, the first half is very difficult. And there are points when you're like, this is high enough. Like, let's just turn around and this is good enough for us. But once you get to the top, it's so amazing and wonderful and beautiful. And then coming down, actually, sometimes coming down is harder than going up, I think. But it's probably, I assume, for most of us, especially younger kids, going down, of course, is easier than going up. That's maybe how some people thought of it at the time. Oh, we finally, like, this is it. We're at the peak. Saul is gone. Now it's our time, like David's time. But that's not actually what happens. After Saul passes away last week, we saw how David responded. And for David, it wasn't a celebration, but a time of mourning. Not only for his friend Saul, who was actively trying to murder him, but it was also for God's anointed. Like, not forgetting, yes, Saul lost his way near the end, of course. I mean, for a long time, he lost his way. But David not only mourns himself, but leads his people, his followers, into mourning for Saul. And I think that says a lot about him as a person. Like a lot of people, oh, there they are. Okay, we were just talking about y'all. But a lot of people can, like the way you respond in victory and in defeat, I think it says a lot about you. In defeat, to take it graciously with sportsmanship, I think says a lot about you. But for David, even though technically he won, he doesn't celebrate immediately, but he mourns what was lost, right? And I think it's a reminder, it's not you versus me or us versus them. It's all of us. We're all in this together, right? And I think it's a good reminder for us the way that Jesus taught. Jesus taught us to love God with everything that we have, and then what? To love people in the way that He loves us. That's the challenge of Christianity, yes? And I think David very well personifies that. Like he embodies that idea. Before even Jesus said those things, David was already doing those things. Now, again, David, we're going to see in a couple weeks, horrible person. Like he does some horrible, horrible, terrible, horrible, awful things. But there are moments where I think he really presents like he's a light in his circumstances, and it's glimpses, glimmers of Jesus that we see before Jesus was even here on earth. And for us too, I want us to be like that. I want us to, in moments, right, moments like this where you could just like fall back into your human instincts. I want us to be like God whenever we can. And David does that, and I hope we can, and it matters. It definitely matters. So today, what are we going to talk about? David becomes king, sort of. He sort of becomes king. Okay, first part of chapter 2. Let's read it together and see what happens. Chapter 2 of 2 Samuel. Here we go. Yep. In the course of time, David inquired of the Lord, Shall I go up to one of the towns of Judah? He asked. The Lord said, Go up. Really efficient conversation. Like, God, should I go? He's like, Yep. Okay, thank you, sir. David asked, Where shall I go? To Hebron. The Lord answered, Wow, very efficient conversation. So David went up there with his two wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David also took the men who were with him, each with his family, and they settled in Hebron and its towns. Verse 4, Then the men of Judah came to Hebron, and there they anointed David king over the tribe of Judah. When David was like, hooray, finally, right? When David was told that it was the men from Jabesh Gilead who had buried Saul, he sent messengers to them to say to them, The Lord bless you for showing this kindness to Saul, your master, by burying him. May the Lord now show you kindness and faithfulness, and I too will show you the same favor because you have done this. Just right there, David is so weird, right? Like who thanks like the people taking care of your enemy? That's crazy, right? But here again, he shows the kind of person that he is. Now then, be strong and brave, for Saul your master is dead, and the people of Judah have anointed me king over them. So next couple verses, just real quick. Meanwhile, Abner, son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army, had taken Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. He made him king over Gilead, Ashuri, and Jezreel, and also over Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. This is the word of God for today. So what's going on? David becomes king, and you know what? Like, after this event happens, I think David could have been like, oh, it's my time. Finally, it's here, right? No, what does he do? First thing he does, with arguably a big success on his way to become king over God's people, which is his calling, instead of just running into that office and saying, this is my office now, he inquires of the Lord, right? He looks to God and says, God, is it time? What should I be doing? Like I think that I think is almost unheard of, especially for people. Like think about everybody you know who recently gotten a good success. How many people are like, oh, new pay? Let me think about it. Let me pray about it. Oh, new office and new job. Oh, hold on. Let me think and pray about it. It's for us, it's almost like, oh, obviously it has to be, right? It obviously has to be from God because it's so good. But David isn't like that. David is patient, David is humble, and David what? Inquires of the Lord. Hello. Okay? And then what does he do? Very, very quick conversation. I don't know if it happened exactly like that, but I think that what the Bible is trying to say is that David and God were like in sync, were on the same page, and David was very close with God. Like he had that kind of relationship with God, which to be the kind of person David is, I think the more time you spend with somebody you admire, you start to be more like that person, yes? And David, the more time he spent with God, I'm sure it influenced and affected everything about him. So David had, should I go? Where should I go? There, okay. And then you know what David does? He just goes. Like he's not like, why am I going there? When is it gonna happen? What are we doing now? There's a big difference between like that kind of faithful obedience that David has, and then lots of little kids. Is Lydia here? She's not here yet. She's 100%. Watch. If she's not here, right? Don't tell her. But tomorrow when she's in the van, I promise you, as soon as we're about to leave, are we there yet? How long is it gonna be? As soon as we pull out of the parking lot, she's gonna ask that question. And it's gonna try my patience, like from the very beginning. But anyway, like that's a normal instinct for younger folks, immature folks, right? Where are we going? How long is it gonna take? Are you sure this is the right way? No, I'm not sure. I've only driven for 20 years. I've driven more in my life than you've been alive. But yeah, question me. Anyways, but that's what David is like, right? And then he just obeys and he goes to where God tells him to go. And there, what happens? He gets one step closer to God's ultimate plans. I know that's like kind of an obvious thing, right? David obeys, and then God's plans are more unfolded, right? Wow, what a surprise that is. Hello? He just does what God says to do, and then God's plans continue. Yes? Crazy, right? Crazy thing. But the thing I want us to see is the next part. See, we think here in chapter 2, we might think, oh, David has finally become king. This is his time now. No, it's not. He's only anointed king over Judah. And then what happens? The commander of Saul's military, he brings one of his Saul's sons and says, you're the next king. probably, I'm sure he has very like greedy and selfish motivations to do that. And then the next few chapters of Second Samuel, just like one or just maybe the very just next one, it shows the civil war that happens because of it. Because of this like dispute over who should be king, Saul's son or David, who's been anointed and appointed by God, there's this giant conflict, a civil war that takes the lives of hundreds of people. Okay, that's what's happening right now in Second Samuel. Point number one. I don't think I have a question now. I think let's just go into point. Sin keeps going. Huh? Sin keeps going. You would think, oh, Saul's mistakes in his life, they should stop when his life stops. No. We see still the consequences of Saul's sins today, far long and after he is gone. What happens? Because Saul doesn't submit to God's plans, because he's self-centered and greedy and wants to do his things his way, not only did that abruptly end his life, the sins that he committed also, like sin equals death. I know we've talked about it before. Sin is serious. Like I mean, I'm sure there are degrees and levels to it. Like maybe like a small white lie maybe won't cause giant, things to happen. But a life of sin ultimately, the ultimate consequence of sin is death. And we literally see people die because of their leaders' sins. Right? Saul, even though he passes away, what happens? Because of the life that he lived, there's a dispute over the leadership, and that causes a civil war where hundreds of God's people will pass away fighting a war that I would argue is very unnecessary. Right? Sin keeps going. There are residual effects to it. Some of you right now, you're living this life just all confused and self-centered and like you just live life your way, doing what you feel like is right. And that's going to lead to serious consequences. Sin always has consequences, always, whether it's a small one or a giant one. Maybe it's just a small inconvenience or a life-altering thing that happens. Sin does not stop just because you are done with it, right? It will keep going and affect not just you, but your like Saul's sins affect his people, his children, and like there are going to be giant consequences because of it. And I wonder, right? I wonder if there are some sins in our lives that we're currently entertaining that could lead to serious, deadly consequences. The Bible doesn't mince words. Is that the right? Like it doesn't like sugarcoat it. It says that sin leads to death. It's not like, oh, sin is bad and you're gonna have a bad life if you sin. No, what the Bible says is that that sin is so serious that it will lead to death. Now that's coming from me, who I got my own issues and my own struggles, and I have addiction. Excuse me, I have addictions, and my brain is rotten right now, probably because of the generation we live in. But I'm not saying I'm a perfect person telling you guys should stop sinning. Like for all of us, every single one of us has things right now that we are looking towards instead of God, and that can become sinful. Like anything in your life that becomes bigger to you than God, that can lead to death. Huh? Things in your life dying. Hello? And we see it very clearly here. The sins that Saul commits not only affect him in his life, but it affects everybody else for a really long time. And it leads to other people actually dying. Hello? I'm sure our sins are not going to cause anything like that, but still, like their wages of sin is death. Like this life that we live, we're trying to be a light in this world, trying to lead people to Jesus. If you're entertaining sin and continuing to live a life of sin, you can't do that. And then less people are going to see God through you if you are constantly like pouring bacteria into the wound that you have. Like we all have these wounds, yes. Like inside of all of us, I do think whether it's because of your parents or because of life circumstances, like we've been hurt. Everybody's hurt in here. And I think that insecurity from that hurt causes us to sin. Like you're insecure, so you turn to people and relationships. You feel insecure, so you turn to money and stuff like that. Like you turn to accomplishments because you think accomplishments will satisfy you. And we have this giant wound in us, and sin is like bacteria that you like exposed it to, and it doesn't heal that way. It festers, and in that situation, I assume, like hello, Isaac, if you don't take care of your wounds, you will get an infection and die. And I think that's what sin is like. Yes? And there's this wound that we have. Instead of taking care of it, we try to try to fix it in the wrong ways. and that will lead to giant consequences. Yes, point number two. I don't think I have a point three. We'll see, right? Oh, actually, I do. I have 3 points. Point number two: God's plan, God's time. These aren't brand new, like, oh, wow, I've never heard that before. These are good reminders for all of us. But David, you know why that is in here today? David, when he's anointed over Judah to be king, you know how long it takes for him to eventually become full king? Over 7 years. I think it was like 7 years and 6 months, something like that. More than 7 years, David still has to wait before he's finally king over God's people. He's been like Louis's age, and he's been on the run from Saul. His life has been uprooted. He has to be a fugitive from Saul, and his life is constantly threatened. And he's been doing that since he was like a middle school, young teenager age. Okay, and then maybe like 7 to 10 years later, finally Saul passes away and he becomes king over Judah. But then David still has to wait another 7 years before he finally becomes king over God's people. I think as soon as David became king over Judah, he could have been like, we're taking this. I've waited long enough and we're going to take this. And he could have rallied his troops. God is with me. God has shown me success. Let's go and take what finally God had promised, and I'm going to take it in my time. Yes, David could have been like that, but you know what he does? He waits patiently for 7 more years for God's plans, God's good plans to unfold in God's time, right? He waits like 10 to 15 years before he finally becomes the person God, like to finally take the job that God had planned for him so many years ago that was promised to him as a young kid. He finally takes it more than 15 years later when he's 30 years old. Some of us, you think, wow, 30 is really old. Your life begins at 30 for some of us, I think. 30 is the best decade, genuinely. So far, the life that I've lived, 10s were not good. 20s were more fun, but still horrible. And my 30s is finally where I feel like a human being. Like, seriously, you guys have no idea. But 30 is, you're like, oh, that's so far away. Like, how can I wait for something? 40s? Maybe 40s will be good. Well, physically not good, but maybe spiritually, mentally it'll be good. Don't lie. but like some of you, you're in your teen years, like you're a middle schooler going into high school, and you think, wow, 30 is like 100 years away. But that's how long David waits for God's plans to unfold in God's time. And some of us, we're so eager and so anxious, and we have that giant insecurity in us. Like, oh, I think that's the difference between Saul and David. David was content today with God. Saul was not content even when he had God. Like for Saul, I just have to keep, like, I need to go get something. Like there was something inside of David that was so dissatisfied that he couldn't just wait and just be patient and trust God. Like there were so many times when God was like, hey, just wait. And Saul was like, no, we're going to go. And it becomes this giant mistake, yes? And for David is so weird. David is so weird that he's able to wait 15-ish years, maybe more, right? More than 15-ish years for God's plans to unfold in God's time, right? God does not waste, and you know what? God doesn't waste that time. It's not like, oh, David is doing nothing. No, David is becoming the leader he needs to become for him to rule over God's people, yeah? Like he needs the patience, he needs the faithfulness, he needs the perseverance that happens in the wilderness that he's kind of in. And I bet you all that stuff, like years and years of building good habits, that's what God was doing in that time. And then when it was finally time, he was ready to go do it. But a lot of us, we're like Saul when we're trying to go do it before we're ready. Before God's ready, before it's God's time, before everything is set in place, we're just like, I'm just gonna go do it. I feel like this is what I should be doing. But that's what Saul does, and it just ruins his life. And then David, again, we're gonna see some giant mistakes David's gonna make in a couple weeks. But what I see over and over and over and over again is David patiently waiting for God's plans to unfold in God's time, right? And God's time is the right time. The last point for today. Whoa, what's going on? We're flying today. All right. Point number 3. So then what do I do today? Trust God, right? That's trusting God before your plans are accomplished or before you finish. Like during the race, when the marathon that you're running before you get to the finish line, that's the hardest time. But that's most of life. Remember, most of life is the race. Very few times in our lives is it finish lines. Yes? And during the hard part in the middle where you're running, that's the part that's the hardest to trust God, but that's when you need to trust God the most. Yes, Maddie? Yeah. You need a water that bad? I'm almost done. Okay, just kidding. Enjoy your water. Please drink. But see, her life is so difficult. She needs water right now. She's not even running a race. But some of us, right? The hardest time to do the thing of trusting God is while you're running the race. But most of life is the running, yes. And while David was patiently waiting, he had to continue to trust God. Imagine how hard it was for David to trust God while he's fighting Goliath, while he's running for his life, while like so much of his life doesn't make any sense. But he what continues to look to God, and he's building this relationship with God and saying, you know what, God, I'm sure God wasn't like giving him explanations every single day. I don't think God was like reassuring him every single day. Yes, I don't think that's what was happening. I'm sure there were moments and times when God was so close and so real, and and David needed that kind of presence in his life. But I'm sure many days he didn't hear from God directly, and he just had to continue to trust God. Yes, trusting a person is really difficult. Imagine trusting somebody you never get to see, like you hardly get to hear from, and you have to trust that person all the time. That's a really difficult thing, but in this part right now in your life, during this season, before you get to the finish line of whatever it is that you're doing, you have to trust God right now and trust that His timing is the best time instead of trying to make things happen on your own. And that's, I think, just the normal human condition. We all will try to just get things done on our own. Yeah? But things happen, guys. Things happen. When God makes it happen, it's like the perfect, most beautiful time. And we should be patient for that. You know, Jonathan recently can I talk about your unemployment a little bit?
Yeah.
He was unemployed for what, a year?
9 months.
9 months? How long did you want to be unemployed?
6 months.
Okay, that's not too bad. Anyways, his public job was challenging, so he left it without a plan. Yeah, without a plan, but he just knew that wasn't the right place, right? And he left it, and he chilled for a little bit. But then near the end, when he was like, "Oh, it's time for me to get a job," it was really hard. Yes, and then it felt like things weren't working out a lot of the time. But his new job so far seems really, really, yeah. See, two thumbs up, right?
If I had three, it would be three thumbs up.
Okay, you can point your toes, but but well, I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but you like it a lot so far. He likes it a lot so far, but I assume his waiting was a lot longer than he expected, months longer, months and months long, and there were disappointments along the way. But you know what? Like I don't know if he knew at the time, but what I knew that it was gonna work out at exactly the right time. The right job was gonna come. Not always, right? Not always, but I just had a really good feeling about it. But I was also scared with him, like because he was spending his savings, and it was like, oh God, what's gonna happen? What are we gonna do? But things did work out, and he like fell into this job that he just found on the internet. Yeah, he just found on the internet, and it's more rewarding. Yeah, more rewarding and more comfortable, and a lot of things are going well. And you know what? It happened later than he probably wanted, but I believe it happened at the right time. But I'm sure like it's difficult in those times when it feels like things are happening later than you want, and you still have to trust God anyway. That when the good things of God happen, they happen at His time, and that's the best time. And we have to trust that. But that's really hard, right? So today, when you're in that kind of season of unemployment, when it feels like you're in a season of unemployment and you don't know what's going to happen, trust God, right? Be faithful and see what God can bring about in that time of patience. Who knows what else like was happening? I'm sure Jonathan learned a lot of lessons that he's not even aware of yet. That will be helpful to his future job. Even the old job that was difficult, I'm sure he learned a lot of things there that will continue to help him in the future, right? So who knows? Who knows what God is doing in your life right now? And our opportunity today is to what? What are the 3 points? Go back to the first one. Let's just look at them real quick. Oh, yeah. Stop sinning, right? Because they will go farther than you think. Point two, what is our opportunity today to trust God and God's plan and God's time? Point three is to just trust God today. Yes? And see what happens. See what's possible if we trust God and wait for His timing. And just, so a life of trust is a life of obeying, it's a life of obedience. Yes, you can't be like, I trust God, but then do what He considers is not so good. Yes? So live a life of integrity, live a life that's pursuing God constantly, live a life of patience, and see what God can do with that, right? I want all of us to get to that place where it feels like, man, this is an amazing blessing that God has given me. But you can't get there if you live like Saul. Yes? You have to be like David. And David was what? Like Jesus, right? Jesus, I'm sure there was a lot of times when he was like, man, all of this is so hard. But he trusted God and continued to do his thing here on earth. And because of it, we're all here today, right? We have all been rescued from sin today because of what Jesus did in obedience 2,000 years ago, yeah, in God's time. So we can also experience that and participate in that as well. Okay? All right, let us pray.